Hello everyone and welcome to LEGO Star Wars Hot Takes episode 19. As always, if you have any hot takes or controversial opinions about LEGO Star Wars, make sure to go ahead and leave them in the comments below. But without further ado, hopping right into it, starting off with Gilgalad6231. He says, hot take, people's obsession with minifigure accuracy is getting really old really fast. I used to use a Hoth Trooper with a camera for a pew pew weapon as a kid with a yellow smiley face. If your imagination can't fill Lego-fied things, I think a toy that is purposed to be more realistic is probably for you. Black Series maybe. Now I'm pretty sure most people know that minifigures can't be 100% accurate because they're not shaped like humans at all. However, I think there's a difference between just wanting detail and wanting accuracy, because I mean when you have a lot of detail on a figure, it is pretty pleasing to look at, although you can have nice accurate figures without having a lot of detail. A good example of this is the 2014 Clone Troopers, but detailed or not, we want the figure to resemble what's in universe. And also it's annoying to just have figures look sloppy because of inaccuracies, like where LEGO tries to add details but it's just inaccurate and it just does not resemble it how it should, like the newest Commander Fox where there needs to be some white on the back of the helmet and where the torso is pink. Doesn't look good, and it's disappointing because LEGO has made really good minifigures in the past. However, I do think minifigures can be overly detailed and that also makes them look sloppy. That's why I'm not super into custom minifigures like custom Clone Troopers. I think unless they're from top-notch companies like Minifigs For You or Clone Army Customs, they just look kind of bad and a little sloppy just because there's way too much going on. Although for super detailed minifigures that are accurate, like the minifigures that we get in UCS sets, I do prefer them to have a lot of accuracy and a lot of detail. Also, when you said Black Series, I think the argument of telling LEGO fans to go buy action figures is just so pathetic, because if we wanted action figures, we would collect action figures, and we can all admit that LEGO is a lot cooler than action figures. Like me personally, I don't care how bad LEGO gets, I'm not going to go out and buy action figures just because LEGO will still be cooler. There's just something about the minifigures and just the overall vibe of the toy. Action figures just don't compare to it. I'd honestly rather have a sloppy looking minifigure than a really nice looking action figure. Now this next hot take is actually a hot take of my own. I was gonna make it a whole entire separate video, but I decided to squeeze it into this hot takes video. And also this is what the thumbnail is referring to, and it is about the new Captain Rex being in the $13 microfighter coming up next year. And I'm gonna try to talk about this as calmly as possible without getting triggered, because I think a lot of you guys that make fun of scalpers and make fun of investors don't really know what you're talking about, and you don't understand why this is not a good thing. And speaking of investors and scalpers and the third-party economy, that's what I'm going to talk about first. Although before I get into it, I do have to say I am not referring to the situation with the LEGO factory in Mexico. I do think it is very shady business to get high-value minifigures backdoored out of a factory for a very cheap price. I just want to make it clear I am not referring to that and I am not condoning that. Anyways, I just think it's so pathetic how LEGO fans complain and complain about scalpers and investors and people that really run third-party markets, because one, Bricklink is a highly praised store that is owned by LEGO and it is the biggest LEGO third-party market in the world. And if we did not have people investing and buying out sets, we would not even be able to get them from the third-party market. You might think, oh, why do we need to get them from the third-party market? Well, obviously once they retire, that is the only place to get them. And also when they're still in production, most resellers put them on Bricklink for less than their retail price, and people still complain for no reason. And then there's the idea of scalpers buying out stores. Like, I don't understand why people even complain about this. I've said this time and time again. There is not anywhere close to a lack of LEGO sets. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of copies of each set circulating around the world, and you're complaining because your Walmart that had 10 copies sold out. And what's even more dumb is people complaining that little kids don't get to get the sets. And I'm talking little kids that aren't even involved in the community. Like, do you guys really care about if these little kids get the sets or not? No, you don't. You care if you get the sets. And let's be honest, we all know the LEGO community is widely spreading to be adults and they are active in the community. And if you're active in the community, I'm pretty sure you know how to work a site like eBay or Bricklink and go order the set off there. And if you don't want to order it off eBay and Bricklink, all of the retail stores are going to have the set in stock online if it's sold out in the in-person store. So again, complaining about scalpers buying out sets is just so stupid. Like, literally go somewhere else besides your in-person store. You can go online. There's dozens and dozens of websites. You can go to another store. There is not a lack of LEGO sets, and there is never ever going to be. And then the next thing I want to talk about why Rex being in the $13 Y-Wing is bad, considering it's going to be the exact same version that's in the UCS Venator, is because rare items builds excitement in the community and it keeps the community and collecting as a whole from becoming stagnant and stale. Most people don't understand that the Phase 2 Captain Rex would not even be popular if he was not a rare and valuable minifigure. And you're like, oh, but it's Captain Rex, he's such a popular character in Star Wars. Well, Yoda and R2-D2 are arguably two of the most popular characters in the Star Wars franchise, and you never see anybody in the LEGO community actually fanboying and going crazy over freaking Yoda and R2-D2 minifigures. And you know why? It's because everybody has them, and there's a same version of them released every single year in all types of cheap sets. It doesn't matter who the character is, if it's common, it's not going to get talked about. And what's even crazier is that there is such an easy solution to these problems. Some of you might have seen this video from this really small YouTuber in the LEGO community, but basically he said characters should be widely available but in different versions. For example, in more expensive sets, they should have features like arm printing or maybe some other types of printing, and cheaper sets should be able to get the same character but with a little bit less detail. And I completely agree with what he said in this video. There just needs to be something exclusive to the UCS sets. One, because you're paying top dollar and I think it's fair to get something a little extra besides just the build, and two, because it'll keep that figure valuable, which will build excitement in the community and give us more things to talk about and keep collecting from becoming stale, and it'll make the third-party economy very healthy with these rare items circulating through. And there is one minifigure that I can think of off the top of my head that LEGO did this perfectly with, and that is Boba Fett. There's literally been countless versions of Boba Fett released, and I'm sure almost all of us have a Boba Fett minifigure of some kind, and he is still widely talked about, unlike figures I mentioned earlier like R2-D2 and Yoda, and that is because there are different versions of him at a lot of varying different rarities and values. Like how in 2015 with the UCS Slave 1 we got the first arm printed Boba Fett since the 2003 Cloud City, and that generated so much talk and so much hype for that set, even though there was a number of different versions of Boba Fett released in between 2003 and 2015. And to this day, that figure is still exclusive. Now, they have made other versions of arm printed Boba Fett and even put them in the mech, although they are not the same version that was included in the UCS Slave 1. And I think if they make another UCS set that includes Boba Fett, he needs to have arm printing and he needs to be an exclusive figure that is separate from the other Boba Fett minifigures that currently have arm printing. And the same thing applies to Phase 2 Captain Rex. We just need rare items. It is healthy for collecting, it's healthy for the economy, it's healthy for the community, it builds hype, it builds excitement, and it keeps everything relevant and moving forward. And speaking of our community, I have to say I have never seen any other community complain about rare items like the LEGO community does. Whether it be sports cards, whether it be sneakers, whether it be something super niche like Hot Wheels or something, I do not see anyone complaining about rare items. They all just praise them and they congrat the people that own them. That's just part of collecting, no matter what it is. Call LEGO a toy, whatever you want to call it. Part of collecting is there's going to be rare and valuable items that not everyone is going to have. There's just so much negativity in the LEGO community and so much complaining, and it's just so pathetic to me. And it also proves to me that most of you guys are not tapped into other collecting niches, again, like sneakers or Pokemon cards. I mean, I never see sneakerheads complaining about super rare shoes like the Travis Scott Jordans or anything like that. They just understand why they're valuable and they understand the hype, and it keeps everything relevant. And again, it just frustrates me why the LEGO community can't be that way. I just think it's pathetic how there's so much negativity and there's so much complaining. And I mean, in my head, the more you complain, the more you want it, and the more you want it, the more things you should do to get it, and stop just sitting back and complaining. So that's what I have to say about the Captain Rex situation. Again, I think the character should be widely available, however, there needs to be different versions of different rarities and values. Ravioli says, hot take, more named characters should be included in battle packs. Not randomly, but similar to Hasbro's Revenge of the Sith Order 66 figure sets from back in the day. They would include a Jedi and his or her troopers. This would work wonderfully to give us new clones like the Galactic Marines, for example, that LEGO otherwise wouldn't really make. Now, what you're describing sounds great and all, but again, I don't think this should be a battle pack type set. I mean, they sort of did this with the fighter tank with Mace Windu and those purple clone troopers, I forgot which legion they are, and I think that's really how this would work best, with just maybe a $40 or $50 set with the Jedi and the clone troopers. Like maybe we could get a new Swamp Speeder that has 327th troopers and Ayla Secura, or some type of set that has Ki-Adi-Mundi and Galactic Marines. I just don't think they should be a battle pack. And if you don't like that, another solution is just to make minifigure packs with named characters, or even a Star Wars CMF series. Although at this point, I never really see LEGO making a Star Wars CMF series, so I think the most realistic thing would just be having like 3 minifigure packs, basically exactly like how they did back in the early 2000s. With named characters, like you said, it could be a Jedi and 2 clone troopers, or 3 Jedi, or 3 Sith. I think that would just be the best and easiest way to get named characters for a cheap price. Lethal Rice Man says, hot take, all of these bad Disney Plus shows are ruining LEGO Star Wars, forcing all of these sets which I consider cluttered taking up places for sets many would prefer. And I disagree with this statement, and actually the LEGO LEGO Star Wars design team disagrees with this statement as well. I talked about this video a little bit last week, but SolidWorks Studios did do an interview with the LEGO Star Wars design team, and one of the designers actually said that they enjoy how there is so much content in so many different new Star Wars shows because there's an endless amount of opportunity for new sets, and I agree with that. I loved all the sets that we got from Ahsoka this year, especially the Ghost. It is such a good set. I also really enjoyed the Mandalorian sets as well, and I would never consider them to be cluttered because they are good sets and these shows are actually pretty good too. So yeah, I just disagree with this, and so do the LEGO Star Wars designers. Toby Waring says, hot take, people are only upset with LEGO about printed waist capes because they are on clone troopers. Before LEGO did it with clones, they always did it to Vader or most Jedi with robes. Now I agree with the first thing you said, but I will get to that in a minute, although I have to point out it's a little bit different when LEGO does it with Jedi or Darth Vader or any other Sith, because they don't wear waist capes, they have entire robes and capes, and in my opinion, I actually think those look better when they are printed on and then they just have a hood piece to cover up their head rather than actually having a physical cloth cape. I talked about this with the most recent Obi-Wan Kenobi minifigures in one of my last hot takes. I actually do think it looks better on Jedi when they have printed on robes instead of an actual cloth robe. However, it is a little different with actual waist capes and commas, as I don't think a printed comma looks good at all compared to a physical comma, because obviously the prints only go on the front of the legs and they don't cover the whole entire legs, and it just makes it not look right at all. And this is actually what the next hot take is about too, where Tavian McNeil says Imperial snowtroopers don't get waist capes and no one bats an eye, clones don't get a waist cape and everyone loses their minds. And yes, this is true, I do have to admit. Honestly, me personally, I never even paid attention to the newest Imperial snowtroopers not having waist capes, and I always paid attention to the clone troopers not having them. And you are right here, I honestly don't have anything to say, although I do think it's more important for a clone trooper to have a waist cape rather than an Imperial snowtrooper, although in the end you are right, no one really cared about the snowtroopers not having waist capes. And yes, like Toby Waring said, people are only overreacting because they're on clone troopers. This last one comes from Cole Wagner. He says, hot take, YouTube commenters really just be saying anything and hoping it sticks. And yeah, you're right, I've definitely seen some pretty, well, I don't want to say stupid, but let's just say not thought out comments under my hot takes videos before. Maybe for April Fools I'll make a cold takes video. Anyways guys, that's gonna do it for this week's episode. As always, if you have any hot takes or controversial opinions about LEGO Star Wars, make sure to go ahead and leave them in the comments below. And if you want to check out more of my videos, you can see them on the screen right now.